mean, let's just start talking about why we started street photography or what got us into it. I think that's what most people will probably be asking, or how do we get started? I mean, as a collective and maybe individually too, right? So, Joe, maybe yeah, to you, I think it's might be good to hear from your side how you really got started.
Sure. Uh-oh, Victor's gonna be smashed. I always had a camera. My grandfather was a photographer during World War II, and photography. He was in the Coast Guard in San Francisco during the war, and he had a Kodak Brownie box camera, and he took a lot of photos of what was going on in San Francisco at their post and sort of what they were up to. And then he just started documenting everything. So he has like street documentary photography from the 1940s. It's awesome. There's like photos of him like photographing the Tommy Dorsey band walking down the street in San Francisco. He has photos from one of the great fires that they had there, like all kinds of different stuff. He always had a camera with him. So that was super inspiring. When I was a kid, he bought me my first camera when I was probably 6. And then my parents always had camera stuff. My dad was a big camera nerd and had like a giant briefcase full of Minolta SLR gear. So I always remember my dad's Minolta camera gear and my grandfather's Nikon that he had all the time. So that was just super inspiring growing up. And then I took a ton of photos. I had a lot of friends that skateboarded, and I rode like a BMX bike and aggressive inline rollerblades or inline skates.
Aggressive? Did you say aggressive?
Yeah, that was a thing for like
Wait,
5 years.
There's somebody more aggressive drinking right now.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know.
Calm
People
down. If you're nervous, it's okay.
people would they had these, I guess they still exist, I don't know. There's roller skate companies that have like rollerblades with like grind plates on them, and
Oh, I see.
so you would do tricks. It started out with mostly people would do them in like the half pipe and stuff like that, but then they made them for street skating. So anyway, I did that, and I had a BMX bike, and always took photos of the crew that I went to the skate park with. And then when I went to college, I had a photography course in the darkroom, and I was absolutely hooked from then. I started shooting film until 2004. So probably like 97 to 2004. I shot film pretty regularly. And then in 2004, I got my first digital SLR camera. I had a couple of like cheaper digital cameras, but they were never as good. I had like an Olympus stylus zoom or something that was digital that was 3 megapixels. But then I got a Nikon D70S when I was working at Best Buy, and that was pretty game changing.
What we're not going to be doing, right? We're not going to be reviewing gear. We're not going to be, I don't know.
And then shot with friends. I had a buddy that was into street photography back then, so I shot a lot. We'd go to Toronto for the weekend. So yeah, probably like 2004 to 2008. And then I started shooting weddings and stuff like that, and it ruined photography for me, and I almost completely quit photography. I sold most of my gear and just probably had like a period of somewhere like I took photos of my kids, but outside of that, that was kind of it. So I had a period of almost like 10 years where I didn't shoot anything. And then when I moved to Toronto in 2017, 18, I really started getting back into it. I bought a Fuji X100, mostly just to take better quality pictures of my kids, and started carrying it with me when I was walking downtown and started shooting street. And then I ran into you guys on Instagram. So yeah, that's my life history of photo stuff.
Wow.
That's all.
You guys are like, that's a lot.
That's why he's
I like
drinking.
I like
That's why he's drink.
photos.
That's why he's drinking
Drinking.
more. It's like forget that. Just it's like
I
just
just
tell us what you started with. Cool. How you got started, and I think to most of us, it's not even the history of it. I think it's just sometimes there's people like me. Maybe I stumbled on it. You
Yeah.
know, like there's people that's been around me all the time shooting, and I've always been intrigued about photography, because I've always loved design, and I've always loved art, the arts itself. And I wanted to be a painter, I wanted to be a DJ, I wanted to be architect, but I'm bad at math, so it's like
and then you become a photographer.
no, I'm still a designer, but it's like but you pick up these things because out of frustration you're like, how can somebody shoot like that, right? And why can't I shoot like that, right?
Mm.
And I think it's the same thing. We started a Zine when Zine, whatever, like when I was in high school with a bunch of friends. And I think that's my high school friends. It's an online thing, and an online magazine we started. And somebody was shooting photography, I was doing layouts on the designs and everything. And it was that kind of collective still, right?
Mhm.
It was pretty cool because it was a digital interactive thing when using Flash and early web technology. I'm aging myself here, but that was the cool part of it. And then I think I missed it after a couple of years. I was like, why did I never I never picked up a camera, right? So
Mm.
when I first started, I pitched in with a friend of mine, and we bought a Leica Deluxe 3, and that
Oh,
was
that's
so that was
that's how that come from.
yeah. So
That small thing.
because basically we were gonna go on a trip, and then I was like, oh, let's buy a digital camera. I had a Sony one, right? But I was like, I don't want to use this. So and it's like, oh, why don't we pitch in for Leica? It's like, I'm like, oh, cool, sure. Like that's how it kind of got introduced.
Nice.
And
I have
then
that same camera, but the Panasonic version.
Wait, how much
yeah.
is that one at the time?
Oh, it's like I think $1,000 or something already. Around there, I think. Yeah.
It might have been close to it. I think I paid 600 or more for the Panasonic one, and Leica normally doubled everything that Panasonic
Yeah.
made.
Yeah. I got into like micro four thirds. So I bought a Lumix GF1, which was like, like they're like, oh, this is the hottest thing ever right now, kind of. And because it had a nice lens, right? The
I
1.7, I
remember
think.
I remember they call it girlfriend.
Yeah.
So you bought a girlfriend.
Yeah, that was my girlfriend, right? And then after
I
a
have
few
the
years,
I had a girlfriend too.
what was your first girlfriend?
I skipped it.
Mm. Well, after that, because I was just getting in again. I started taking food photography, like just as a hobby kind of thing, right? And then
I say
after
bye for the
that,
food.
yeah, exactly, right? I was just experimenting. But after that, that's when I bought the Fuji X Pro 3. I mean, X Pro 1. Sorry, that was a slip. But that was the first time I bought my geisha, I guess, the X Pro 1. So, and it went from there. And then now I'm shooting with the XE3, as you know. I think Victor and I are twins about that. So,
What?
you're twins. You have the same thing.
You have the same camera.
You have the same
Wait,
camera.
what?
No, we're not twins by blood, Victor.
That's very disappointing. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Like I wanted to share what I see, and it was a challenge for me to shoot what I see and share it with people. And while I'm commuting downtown, when I used to work downtown, it's just to pass the time, right? Just to like during the subway ride or the GO train ride to go home, and to make the commute more exciting, and then just do something while you're traveling. So it was
Oh,
like a little escape.
what? But Joe, that's how we met. Like, I literally saw him on the GO train station.
Yeah. So I've
Yeah.
seen him before. I've seen him first time. He's carrying a big bag, and I wanted to approach him, but I was like, oh, he might get weirded out. And then I think the second time he spotted me, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then
I see, I see.
Like you probably know that I met him at the Go Train, but
Right.
like exactly how we met. And then the funny thing is we had it turned out we had something in common.
Which is
I
the
was-
weirdest thing ever. I'm like, because he approached me, and then there's this, tall, like Victor's pretty tall, and then he had this big lens camera, and then I was like, why is this guy shooting? Right. And then he's like, he asked me like what I'm shooting, and I said I'm trying to do street, because I just started, around that time. And then I'm like, what are you shooting? He goes, oh, I like nature stuff, right? Like, I think you were still into
at the
the
Go
nature.
Train.
Yeah. And I'm like, there's no nature here. Right. And then yeah, and after that, I think the second time we talked about it, right, Victor? The second time we met in the train,
I
I
think
asked
so.
you what he was, and then I asked him what he does, and then he told me he works. And then he goes, "What's your mother's name?" And then I told him my mom's name, and then he said, "Oh, I think I know your mom." So that was pretty ridiculous. And then I told my mom, I said, "Oh, I met this guy on the train, and we sometimes talk about
Met this
photography." And
creepy
then,
guy with a giant lens taking
Yeah.
pictures of people on the train.
exactly. And then she's like, I think you guys work together. And she's like, but I wouldn't ever guess. And then I told her, "Oh, it's Victor." And then she's like, "It's Victor. I know Victor." I'm like, I think from there on, and that's just history itself, I think.
That was funny.
Yeah.
It was fate. You guys were destined to meet each other.